Welcome to The Explainer. Sometimes a simple name can hide an absolutely epic story. Today, we're tracing the journey of a single military unit, a journey that spans continents, empires, and even centuries, all hidden behind one very surprising name. So let's just dive right in with a question. Think about World War I. The British Empire drew soldiers from all over the globe, right? From Canada, Australia, Africa, India, the list goes on. Now, out of all those thousands of units, which single one saw action in the most places? Well, the answer might surprise you. It was the 89th Punjabis, a regiment of the British Indian Army. And believe me, their name tells just a tiny, tiny fraction of their long and really complicated history. I mean, just look at this list. Their World War I journey was, well, it was a staggering world tour of conflict. They fought in the deserts of Aden, defended the Suez Canal in Egypt, stormed the beaches at Gallipoli, and slogged it out in the trenches of France. They even ended up serving in the mountains of the Caucasus. Seriously, no other unit in the entire empire fought in more places. And this is where the story gets really, really interesting. Because while they were known as the Punjabis, their story doesn't actually kick off in the Punjab. Nope, it starts over a century earlier, in a totally different part of India. So get this, the unit was first put together way back in 1798, and not in the Punjab, but down in Masulipatam in South India. It was originally made up of local Muslims, Tamils, and Telugus. They even had a nickname, Macleod's Kipaltan, which basically means Macleod's Battalion, named after their very first commander. Over its first 100 years, this unit had a bit of an identity crisis. I mean, its name just kept changing, pretty much reflecting where it served. It started as a Madras unit, then became a Burma battalion, and finally, in 1903, it landed on the name we're talking about today, the 89th Punjabis. Okay, so why the big switch from South Indian to Punjabi? Well, it all comes down to the Third Anglo-Burmese War. The British wanted different troops to control their newly conquered territory in Burma, so in 1893, the unit was completely reformed. It was reconstituted with Punjabi Muslims, Sikhs, and others. And just like that, its original Madras identity, well, it vanished. And that brings us right to 1914. This new-look Punjabi unit, forged on the frontiers of Burma, was about to be thrust onto the world stage. Their whole transformation up to this point was really just a prelude to the ultimate test of their endurance and courage. From the very start of the war, the 89th Punjabis were making history. In November 1914 in Aden, they executed the first ever opposed sea-borne assault landing in modern warfare. Just a few months later, they were in Egypt defending the vital Suez Canal, and by May, they were thrown into the infamous meat grinder of Gallipoli. And the pace? It was absolutely relentless. It just didn't stop. From the mud of France, they were shipped off to the deserts of Mesopotamia, what we now call Iraq. There, in the desperate battles to relieve the besieged town of Kut el-Amara, the regiment was almost completely wiped out. The human cost was just staggering. The 89th Punjabis suffered over 1,000 casualties, with 211 men killed. For a single battalion, this was an immense sacrifice, a price they paid across more battlefields than any of their peers. Yet, out of that terrible suffering came these incredible acts of heroism. A soldier named Naik Shamed Khan, during that brutal fighting in Mesopotamia, was awarded the Victoria Cross, the highest award for gallantry, for his most conspicuous bravery. He commanded a machine gun section all by himself after all his comrades had become casualties. Just incredible. After 6 long years of constant war, the regiment finally returned home in 1920. But their story of evolution was far from over. The post-war world would bring yet another fundamental change to who they were. And their evolution just kept going. In 1922, they were merged into the 8th Punjab Regiment. Then came 1947 and the partition of India, and the unit was allocated to the new army of Pakistan. A final merger in 1956 gave them the name they carry to this day, the 1st Battalion of the Baloch Regiment. And as the 1st Baloch, their legacy of service continued. They fought in the wars of 1965 and 1971, served on the forbidding Siachen Glacier, literally the world's highest battlefield, and even deployed as UN peacekeepers in Liberia, continuing their global story. So, when you step back and look at it, this one unit's 200-year journey really mirrors the history of the subcontinent itself. It's a story of shifting identities, of imperial conflict, the birth of new nations, and an unbroken thread of resilience through it all. Which leaves us with a final thought, doesn't it? The story of the 89th Punjabis shows that behind a simple name on a monument or in a history book, there can be a breathtakingly complex and epic journey. It makes you wonder how many other histories like this are out there, just waiting to be explained.